Yeah, man. What a drag. It's so painful to listen to some of the stuff that you hear on the CBC. And keep in mind, if we're not listening to the CBC, it's the CTV, which is, you know, it's not it's the CTV. They have their news program, and it's pretty straight ahead. You would think that there's a bit of a right wing bias to it. It is corporate media. You know, it's not. It's honestly sometimes it pisses me off less than the CBC does, though, to be honest. And then you have Sun TV, Sun Media. That's what we have in Canada. Is that pretty
Yeah,
scary or what?
yeah, and just stay away from the Sun Media stuff. It's not worth having another embolism.
Yeah, yeah, no, no. I listened to 30 seconds in total of Sun TV. You know, 30 seconds in total, and guess what? It was 30 seconds of hardcore gay bashing. It accused Dalton McGuinty of supporting the idea of man on boy sex being promoted in the public school system. It was evil. It was absolutely evil. Bullshit lies. I couldn't believe it.
That's what they do best.
Yeah, and I'll never put on anything from Sun TV again. I wouldn't be able to handle it. I hope. Do you know how that network's doing?
I'm sure they're doing quite well.
Oh God, that's not what I like to hear. But you know what?
I'm that's just a guess on my part. But
Yeah,
I mean, I can imagine, what sells, and Sun TV or Sun Media in general, is the perfect example of what journalism isn't.
yeah.
And people aren't interested in journalism. They just, I don't know, they want to
Well,
hear something from Sun Media.
you know what? The story that you brought up earlier, just to get off that topic of my
Yeah, we
embolism.
got to get you away from that.
Yeah, the story about the scientists who are seeking the right to speak for themselves, was that reported on the CBC? Where did you find
I
that?
I honestly don't know. It goes back to last year. Um, the article that I found, let me see, where was that? I think it might have just been in a regular news stream from Reuters, or I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, the article I was looking at was on the Globe and Mail. I put it on our opposition r.adio Facebook page
Okay.
too. It's called "Writers Want Ottawa to Let Scientists Speak for Themselves." Right, and it
Yeah.
was Catherine O'Hara, the president of the Canadian Science Writers Association. She wrote a letter to. They're reporting on a letter she wrote to Prime Minister Stephen Harper, urging him to allow scientists who are funded by the government and under the employ of the government to allow them to speak with the media without going through the PMO first, right? The
hmm
Canadian Science Writers Association represents more than 500 science journalists, and basically what they're saying is that they can't write, like 500 science journalists can't talk to anybody that gets money from the government, whether directly or indirectly.
Yeah, she indicated that more often than not they're denied to do the interview, or they're just have to go through endless amounts of bureaucratic channels until finally the
Yeah.
interview isn't even an issue anymore.
Yeah, and I'll read a quote from the article here from her. She says, "We urge you to free the scientists to speak, be it about the state of ice in the Arctic, dangers in the food supply, nanotechnology, salmon viruses, radiation monitoring, or how much the climate will change. Take off the muzzles and eliminate the scriptwriters and allow scientists, they do have PhDs after all, to speak for themselves." Right? And I think it's important for us to discuss this subject, and hopefully we can get into it in more depth with Gavin Stairs when he comes on, hopefully next week or sometime shortly after. It's important for us to talk about this because it fits in with the grander scheme of what we might call Stephen Harper's war on information,
It
right?
sure does.
For the same reason that he has essentially rendered the census statistically useless. Um, he is now making anything that comes out of a scientist's mouth highly suspect because it has to be vetted through the PMO. So you're not going to get any honest assessment from the. You go to talk to a climatologist who gets funded by the government, right? And there's not too many scientists in Canada that don't receive government funding in some way, shape, or form, right? Unless it's just they're just working for the oil companies. You're not going to. Are you going to get an honest Canadian scientist to talk about what's happening with polar bears, what's happening with Arctic ice, what's happening with climate change and how it's affecting the forests of BC. Who's going to talk to us about what's really happening in the world if scientists have to get Stephen Harper's approval of everything that they say to us, lest they lose their funding?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? We're the only information that we're going to get that probably doesn't have to come through Stephen Harper's office is going to come from an oil company, where climate change is concerned.
Yeah, it's becoming quite apparent as to who this government supports and who are their opponents. They're in the other article that I mentioned at the beginning of the show. They're even laying that out, going back to March 2nd, 2011. The documents that were I think Greenpeace and Climate Action Network obtained. It literally lays out who they consider their allies, and I think the names that were mentioned were the National Energy Board, Environment Canada, Natural Resources Canada, Indian and Northern Affairs Canada, the Privy Council, the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, imagine that, and their Business and Industry Associates. So sounds like the oil and gas industry is a close friend of Stephen Harper. Surprise, surprise.
God.
Yeah, and the adversaries are European NGOs, the media in general, biodiesel industry, environmental groups, and they even include Aboriginal groups in there too.
Yeah.
So
interesting, man. Interesting. So that anyway, Stephen Harper's war on information, and something we should keep track of in the coming months and years of Stephen Harper's government for sure.
Crystal